And he is an amazing, talented bass player, composer, songwriter, and lead singer of the great 80s band Mr. Richard Page. How you doing, bud?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Now, you grew up in Iowa. Now, give us a little background on you personally, and who were your major music influences growing up?
Well, I didn't grow up in Iowa. Actually, I was born there and then moved immediately to New Jersey and then to Montgomery, Alabama. And I was raised until I was about 9 in Montgomery, Alabama, during the most turbulent time of, the civil rights movement and so forth. And then we moved out to California. We moved a lot and spent some time in Santa Monica and then went to Phoenix, went to high school in Phoenix, and then moved to L.A., just to give you a little chronological order of my moving around.
And then when you were in Phoenix, you had you put together one of your first bands, Pages?
Yeah.
What's the background on that?
Well, actually, we put together the band in L.A., but it was all guys from Phoenix who had been, local musicians there who had all moved to L.A. and put together a band and with Steve George, who turned out to be the keyboard player in Mr. Mister, and a few of the other guys that had moved out here, and got a record deal over at Epic with Bobby Colomby, the drummer of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, who had become an A&R guy there. I think it was like 1977, maybe.
And then at that point, Richard, you did do some session musician work, and you did some composing for Michael Jackson and Donna Summer, and you did some session harmonizing with your good friend Steve George. What was that experience like?
Which one? I mean, we sang on so many records that I couldn't count them all. We did a lot of session work for many, many years.
I know you guys in 1980, I think you did backup vocals for REO Speedwagon, too.
Oh, yeah.
On their High Fidelity album. I love that album.
Yeah, one of many. I mean, many albums. Like, sometimes we'd do 2 or 3 sessions a day. So, yeah, it was a lot of work, a lot of good times, and a lot of learning about production and writing and performing and so forth.
And then I'm sure that brought some great influences to the band Mr. Mister.
Well, I guess, everything that you do is the sum of your influences. So, yeah, I know that all those years spent in the studio had a lot to do with what happened with the Mr. Mister time.
And then how did you and Steve come up with the idea for Mr. Mister and the band name, and how did that all come about?
Well, the band Pages, which I spoke about earlier, had done 3 albums. None of them had really registered with the public, although we gathered a pretty strong cult following with musicians. And to this day, I mean, there's still pockets of places around the world that love that music and music of that genre and that era. But we'd kind of exhausted everything we wanted to do with that band and thought, well, let's try something different. And styles were changing at that time, and we just put together a different group and started writing a little bit differently. I wouldn't say more commercially, but just tried to hone our writing a little bit more, and got a record deal there with RCA, with Paul Atkinson, who was the guitar player of the Zombies, if anybody remembers that.
Mm-hmm. I do.
He was an A&R guy there, and signed with them and did one album that didn't do so well, and then, of course, the second album was Welcome to the Real World, and that had all the hits on it.
Right, and let's go back to that first album, I Wear the Face, that was released in 1984. What was the background on the single, on the tune Hunters of the Night?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think we were just trying to fit the marketplace. We were really trying to come with a hit song, and it sort of sounds like that. I never particularly loved that song, and of course it didn't really make any noise either. But that was our first attempt, and after that album, we kind of regrouped and thought, well, let's not try to do any particular thing. Let's just do the kind of writing that we like to do and see where it takes us.
And I know your sophomore album, Welcome to the World, was released in 1985. And then your cousin John Lang was a part of the writing of the lyrics for that album?
Yeah, well, he was part of our songwriting team all the way back to the early Pages. And so he remained a strong part of the creative force of Mr. Mister as well. He
kind of came up with the lyrics, with your help, also for the number 1 hit single, Broken Wings. Now, how was that song invented?
Well, geez, I don't know. I mean, I just sat down and came up with the bass line and the melody, and John came over and had some words, and, it was pretty much completed in an hour, I mean, it was just one of those things that sort of just was waiting to be written and found a life of its own. So I mean, specifically, I think, it came out of a time when a lot of us had been struggling with addictions and, had sort of been drinking too much and partying too much, and we decided to get that under control. And I think Broken Wings had a lot to do with that time, and it sort of was about pulling your life together and deciding to do something, that was a little more freeing.
Then I know there's a little confusion. I know you guys had 2 consecutive #1 hit singles in a row. A little bit of a confusion on who wrote Kerry, the follow-up #1 hit. And was there like some sort of religious significance to that song?
No, the song Kyrie was, Kyrie itself is from the Greek Mass, and it means Lord. Kyrie eleison means Lord have mercy on us. And when John came to me with that lyric, I said, I don't really want to do that because I think we'll be mistaken as a Christian band. And he kind of talked me into it and said, well, let's just go for it and see what we get. And pretty soon the song just took on a life of its own, and there was no turning back. And I just thought, well, whatever, we'll just let people just have to figure out what it means to them. And but strangely, a lot of people don't even know what it means, or do they care? I had a guy come up to me right when it was becoming a big hit, and he recognized me, and he said, hey, man, I love that song, Carry a Laser. And I looked at him, and I thought, well, should I blow his whole thing? No, and I just said, oh, yeah, thanks, man,
I hope that only happened once, right?
Yeah, well, but, songs are misinterpreted, misunderstood, but it didn't matter. People love the song, and that's all that counts, really.
And I know there was a 3rd single that you guys released, and it was actually used in the closing credits to the 80s movie Stakeout. Is It Love? How was that song invented?
Well, again, it was just, just a writing session where we were exploring different ideas, and we liked the groove of that tune, and John had a lyric to go with it, and, it climbed up to number 8, it made the top 10. So it was, another good song for us.
And now I know, Richard, you're working on several projects. Now, tell me a little bit something about the special 2 CD set that you have out, Solo Acoustic. Tell me a little bit more about that project.
Solo Acoustic is a DVD and audio CD that I recorded at a friend's studio down in Santa Monica, and we had a camera crew come in, and I just basically tested the theory that if a song is good, it'll be good whether you play it with the guitar or if you play it with a full band or orchestra or whatever. So I just took some of my better known songs and had a live studio audience there, and just did a small little concert of about 12 songs, and it's available on my website at richardpagemusic.com. Shameless plug, and or at Little Doom Music, DUME, Little Doom Recordings, .com. But you can find it on my website if people are interested.
And then, Richard, like when you're writing a song, do you usually come up with the lyrics first, or the melody, or how does that process begin?
There's never any one way for me. Sometimes I'll just have a title. Mm-hmm. Or I'll have a chord progression or a melody, and if it's good, and if you sit with it long enough, it's sort of like a puzzle. It'll figure itself out. So that's generally how I write. There's no one set way. Okay,
and I know you have the Solo Acoustic CD out now. Are you working on any new projects? Are you going to be out on tour, or anything coming up next for you?
Well, I've been out with Ringo Starr and his all-star band for the last 2 summers. We just got back from Europe.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. We did 2 months there, all over Europe. We're going to South America in November. So that's sort of what's next for me. I mean, I'm always coming up with ideas, and I do a lot of writing for other people as well. So people may wonder what happened to me between 1987 and now. I spend a lot of time working in the studio, writing for others and doing different projects and so forth. But specifically, the Ringo Starr thing is kind of what I'm doing right now. But I am talking about some other collaborations and albums and recordings that I might do soon.
Wonderful, Richard. And if anybody would like some more information on your projects, where they can see you on tour, what's the best website to go to?
richardpagemusic.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Richard, for being a part of the show tonight. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.